On the 10th of September, she writes Lady Clark from the Chateau of Lafayette at Lagrange, and among other feminine tattle says, "The General has proposed inviting Humboldt and Denon to join us. If they come, Europe could scarcely present such another circle of talent and celebrity." A month later at Paris, she again mentions Humboldt, this time in her diary. Humboldt had called and, as usual, had written his scrap in the porter's lodge. The poor porter, had he known the value of his autograph, he would have pilfered it, and what renders it more curious, it is written on the back of a milliner's card. Where could Humboldt have gotten that milliner's card, pray? Had he been buying a new bonnet for some of his lady acquaintances? Or was he thinking of studying the botany of artificial flowers? If the latter, he must have found her ladyship a rare specimen. Another extract from the diary, no date, about the 30th of October. Humboldt has been again today, and again we were out. How very mortifying. His visits are none the less angels' visits, because they are not few or far between, and certainly so far as my acquaintance goes with the angelic choir, Cielo, vout bien les atres. He left a precious little billet in the porter's lodge, where he wrote it. Alexandre Humboldt, Tortures Azes, Malchirax, Dene Pastuva, Lady Morgan. Another amusing extract from the diary, sometime towards the end of November. Thursday, I was sitting this morning for my picture to Berthon, when the portier of the hotel, in the absence of my servant, threw open the door and announced in one word, "Lord William Spence," and entered the charming William Spencer, the poet laureate of the aristocracy of London. What an agreeable surprise. He always brings a bon ton London atmosphere with him. Berthon was charmed with the cordiality of our meeting, which he thought brightened up my countenance, which had hitherto expressed nothing but bore. He made Spencer sit down, per far effetto. Hence I could see him, and kept poking my head with his maul stick, till I am sure my pose gave me the air of an illustration of the Petite Courtier des Dames. I took the opportunity of asking Spencer for a copy of his beautiful verses of apology to Lady Anne Hamilton for staying too late at her house, spellbound by the eyes of the loyal, lovely Suzanne Beckford, after the Duchess of Hamilton. He pretended to have forgotten them. I said that this was an affectation unworthy of him, and I repeated the first verse myself. Too late I stayed, forgive the crime, for who could commit the hours? For lightly falls the foot of time that only treads on flowers. Berthon, affecting to be charmed with the maitre, said, "Mais dritus mui cela milady." I began, "J'ai resté traptat l'autre soir," but Spencer and I both burst out laughing, so we could not proceed. Berthon looked confused. "Oh," said Spencer in beautiful French, "it is only nonsense worthy of Voiture or the Hotel Rambouillet." "Vairement," said Berthon, who had the most likely not heard either or the other. "Attention, milady." So he went on with this painting, and we fell into discourse in English on the cancan of Mayfair and into fashionable frivolities. And Miss Barry's last mot, "Not friendship can cross north of Oxford Street," when a letter was written, delivered to me on the outside which was written Alexander von Humboldt. The dirty little spot called the world disappeared from its own myths and the universe of which Humboldt is at this moment with the high priest, seemed to replace the puppet show with which we had been playing. Spencer begged the cover and read out the letter that my pose might not be disturbed, and Berthon said, looking at the picture through his hands, "C'est un grand homme, M. Humboldt. J'ai ambition de faire un portrait et de le mettre à l'exposition du Louvre avec le portrait de l'humanité." I promised to invite Spencer to the first Wednesday evening. I expected Humboldt. This is Humboldt's letter. From M. Humboldt to Lady Morgan, Thursday. This pleasing remembrance of Sir Charles and Lady Morgan adds to the deep regret I feel at not having enjoyed their interesting conversation at Madame D. H.'s. My health is almost entirely re-established, and I shall hasten to present myself at Lady Morgan's residence to offer what is her due on so many claims. The homage of my sentiments of admiration and devoted respect, alas. What pitiless judges I have in your beautiful ambition. You will permit me, I hope, to complain a little when you see how I am treated to the last number of the Quarterly Review, but I have well deserved it. Humboldt. Our next and last extract from the diary is the most Morganish of them all. It shows us the sort of people with whom Humboldt mingled in his lighter moments, and with whom he amused himself unbending his great nature in the intervals of his labor. Toward the end of December, her ladyship, after dining with Doctrinaires, a political set of the day, set Morgan, who enjoyed an opera, serious or comic, beyond everything else in the world, down at the Opera Comique, and drove to Faubourg Saint-Honoré to pay a visit to Madame de Hochin, who received in the charming, easy French style every evening. Madame de Hochin had been a dame d'auteur of the Empress Josephine, and her salon was Bonaparte pour. Her compere this evening was no less than Denon Segur and M. de Montaire, the latter creating groups out of a peak of cards scattered on the table. Well, the moment I mentioned where I had come from, grande hilarité, vigoureusement, said Madame de Houchin, the author of the Madi in France, popped down among these salons and liqueuses. They insisted on hearing how I had debuted, and my irreverent question as to the religion à la mode was the text to a most curious and interesting conversation in which everyone bore part, and were all qualified to do so, as they all knew the chief actors, and above all, the principal actress of the Congress of Vienna, 1814, where Madame de Krüdener was the Pythoness, and the Duchess de Pianon and de Brigiza were the secret oracles of Metternich, who won his spores in the Borders. Lady Castlereagh, with whom, by the by, some 2 or 3 years ago, I lived for 3 days every week, for she used to come to Lord Abercorn's whilst I was there every Saturday and stopped till Monday, who was so innocent, dear Chuck, of the knowledge of all the politics that even the Mephistopheles of diplomacy, Talleyrand, gave her up in despair, though he tried his hand to turn her to account whilst she was at the Congress. Oh, said Denon, Madame Krüdener engrossed all influences. I remember her at the Congress and later at Paris, where her salons were covered with devotees and crowned heads. She was the greatest actress I ever saw. Too melodramatic for Clairon or Mars, but quite good enough for an audience of kings and emperors. For royalty has loved the drama from Caesar to Bonaparte. How was she dressed, I asked. Always a woman's first idea. Well, in a flowing robe of white cashmere, or some soft fabric, but draped ardisquement. The folds gathered round her waist by a silver girdles, tresses, dories flowing in profusion over a neck of alabaster. She had the air of being flung over on a crimson velvet sofa piled with cushions. The sort of background a painter would have chosen for her, always 2 or 3 crowned heads in attendance. Alexander on one side, dressed to the effect in black and diamonds. The King of Prussia, no wise remarkable except by contrast on the other. On a low stool at the feet of the prophetess sat her disciple, Borghese, and her high priest, young Stilling. Euclid's done, said Madame de Huchin, nudging me. Est il l'artiste notre Denon, quelle groupe?